Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bracy Sports Media. My name is Aaron Bracy, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Malcolm Kelly, the wide receivers coach at TCU, who coached Eagles' first-round pick Jalen Reagor last season. Coach Kelly also is a former second-round pick of the Washington Redskins and played 2 seasons in the NFL. Coach Kelly, thank you so much for joining us here on Bracy Sports Media today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can download our podcast at Bracy Sports Media, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on our podcast, you can watch this on our YouTube channel, Bracy Sports Media. Finally, please be sure to check our website, bracysportsmedia.com, to read the corresponding story with this interview. All right, Coach, let's jump right into it. When I say Jalen Reagor, what is the first thing that pops to your mind?
Explosion. Explosive dude. That is an explosive cat. Definitely.
One thing, people like myself who are fans, we're trying to educate ourselves. We're watching YouTube videos. We're listening to people we trust, but we're not on the ground. We're not there like you were all last season. So I'd like to just kind of walk through some things that I've heard, and I'd like you to tell me. First, I'd like to start with the strengths. We hear about his versatility. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think he has the ability, to play inside and outside. His leaping ability at 5'10 and a half, 5'11. We throw him a lot of jump balls, and he has the ability to go up in high point balls like a 6'3", 6'4" guy. I think his explosion is pretty evident, by the 40 times, by the vertical jump, by the broad jump. But he has the innate ability to turn nothing into something. And you can see that multiple times on tape. Again, I just think he's just he's a natural athlete. Things come to him easily. And more than anything, I just think his work ethic, he's been preparing for this moment for a long time. So, yeah.
How often would you line him up in the X and Z in the slot? How often would you play him in the different positions? Because I know you moved him all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as often as we could. I mean, that was the main objective, was trying to get in the ball as often as we could. So, it wasn't really about finding a matchup for him, because pretty much anybody he lined up against, I mean, it was a matchup issue for them, not for him. But anytime we can move him so guys couldn't double team him and things like that, we tried to do that as often as possible.
What do you think his best position in the NFL would be?
Either one. Again, like I say, I think it's a lot easier to move from outside to the slot than it is to move from the slot to outside. Because on the outside, guys get hands on you all the time. In the slot, you get a lot more free releases. But he's shown he can do it on the outside, and I don't see that changing at the next level.
That was my question. Is there any concern that the physicality is a concern on the outside to get the release with the physical cornerbacks in the NFL?
Not at all. I think once he gets on y'all's campus and y'all see him up close and personal, he will dwarf a lot of the DBs that he'll line up against. He is put together. He is not lacking physicality whatsoever.
One of the things that jumps out at you on the YouTube videos and the highlights is his ability to run after the catch.
Yes.
Can you explain that? What makes him so good at that, besides just obviously his speed?
Yeah, I think, like I say, he has the ability to turn nothing into something. And I think sometimes it got him in trouble because he's always looking, for the home run, which I know once he gets to that level, it'll kind of tone down a little bit. But the more he matures as a player and things like that, it'll come to him more. But it's just, he's always done it. He's done it in high school. He did it in college. And again, once the speed of the game slows down in the NFL, he'll be doing the same thing.
We touched on it a little bit, but we also hear about his strength. Can you give us an example of in college where his strength was evident to you as a coach?
Yeah, I think, like I said, anytime he got press release, or anytime he had to release off press in the run game, you could see him, getting hands, getting locked on the guys, driving guys out of bounds. And again, I don't remember his exact bench press numbers. Sure it was in the 4s or high 3s. I mean, he squatted well over 600 pounds, so like I say, we're talking about a guy who's 195 pounds, so his overall strength is off the charts.
Coach Malcolm Kelly joining us here on Bracy Sports Media. All right, Coach, I would like to talk about the speed, because it's been such a big issue here in Philadelphia with the speed because of the 40 time at the combine, the 4.47, but then the pro day was 4.23, and then we hear about the GPS numbers where he runs 20.8 miles per hour, and then high school coach Kitna says he's game day fast. Not anyone's going to catch him from behind. So there's so much about his speed out there. What can you tell us about his speed?
That dude would never get caught from behind, ever, as long as he plays. He will never get caught from behind. Again, I never tested him here at TCU. I know when he went to the combine, he was 10 pounds heavier than his playing weight. By the time he did his pro day, he was back down to 194, 195. So if he went 4.47 at the combine and then he went 4.42 or 4.48 at the pro day, I think if you go anywhere in between that, you're looking at a guy who's very explosive. So, yeah, he won't have any issues whatsoever getting caught from behind.
Well, that puts that to rest. Let's talk about some other things that are considered his weaknesses. Again, this is from people like myself, hearing what we read, watching. But the things you hear about him is, you hear about he has drops and he doesn't run the best routes. What can you say to people? You know it better than anyone. What can you say to people who are making that claim, those two claims?
Well, I think for one, route running, they'll find out shortly the answer to that question. I think he's one of the better route runners in college football this past year, and I'll stand on that. It's funny because he's there with my guy D-Jack now in Philly. When me and D-Jack came out, no receiver went in the first round, right? And we all went the second round. And that was his big knock, was that he couldn't run routes. Where here we are 10, 11 years later. You know what I mean? So it'll be good for him to get around that guy and lean on him. But as far as the drops, I just think he was pressing. I think when you press, again, when you try to score a home run, try to score a touchdown every single time, you get ahead of yourself. Right. And I think that's what happened with him this season.
Coach Malcolm.
So much this season because he had plans. Yeah, no, all good.
Coach Malcolm Kelly joining us here on Bracy Sports Media. And, Coach, it is public information. Your head coach said that we didn't do him justice this year with your situation on offense, you had a young quarterback. So he had 43 receptions for 611 yards and 5 touchdowns. People may look at those numbers and be a little surprised that they're not higher, especially considering what he did the previous season. But what from your standpoint on the sidelines, how I guess challenging was it this season when you have a Jalen Reagor and you're trying to make some changes and you have young players in your offense? How hard is that for a player like Jalen Reagor, kind of what you guys were going through this year?
Yeah, I just think that we had a young guy at quarterback, true freshman, who was in high school the year before, and I told all our guys, you were once a true freshman. And look at your true freshman tape compared to where you are today.
Right.
2 completely different worlds, so just trying to implement all of those things. And again, him trying to turn every play into a home run play. Right. Those things combined, I think were the reason for some of the drops. Jalen Reagor has elite level ball skills. And again, y'all will find that out shortly.
Coach, have you looked at your numbers side by side to his? Because it is eerie how close you guys were. In 3 seasons at Oklahoma, you had 144 catches. Jalen had 148. You had 2,285 yards. He had 2,248. You had 21 touchdowns, and he had 22. Did you ever look at those numbers side by side and think, he's a lot like you in college?
That is the first time I've ever heard those numbers, ever. That is crazy. That is crazy. I will say Jalen Reagor has a lot more upside than I did as a player. He's a different kind of guy. Definitely.
Now, I know people in Texas are crazy about football, and in Philadelphia we're crazy about football. From experience, having played twice at the Link with the Eagles. What do you remember about those days? You actually had a couple big plays in 2009 in Philly. What do you remember about playing in Philly, and specifically about Philadelphia fans that maybe you could tell Jalen a little bit about?
Well, he should be pretty good because he won't be on the receiving end of it the majority of the time. He won't be on the receiving end of it. But no, Eagles fans are as close as you would get to a true college rivalry atmosphere. Like that's the closest you get to it in the NFL. There's nothing like playing there, So that's one thing that I'll always remember is like you go there, you know what time it is. Pre-game, the bus rolling up to the stadium, you might get eggs thrown at the bus. Everything goes, So again, they love their football, they love their sports. Period. and it'll be good for him. I think they'll embrace him.
Do you think there's any concern that because there is so much focus that, especially now as a first-round pick from Eagles fans, is that going to be an issue at all with Jalen handling that pressure, or is that just in his DNA to be able to handle the kind of fan, like you said, that Philadelphia Eagles fans are?
He's built for it. Point blank, period. He's built for it. He thrives on it. I think, again, when things get tough, that's when he's at his best, you know. So, and again, he's excited just because of the weapons that he's going to have around him, the quarterback situation. So, again, I think him growing up, going to NFL games, watching his father play all of those games, like I said, prepared him for this moment.
Coach Malcolm Kelly from TCU joining us here on Bracy Sports Media. All right, Coach, last thing I wanted to hit on is kind of putting you on the spot. It's kind of a tough question, hypothetical, but that's what we do. So I'm going to ask you anyway.
Yeah.
In 5 years, when we're looking at 5 years and looking back, what are Eagles fans going to be thinking about the drafting of Jalen Reagor? We got all the Jalen's over here in Philly this year. Jalen Reagor in the first round. In 5 years, what are people going to be saying about this pick?
I think they're going to look back and wonder why they might have second-guessed it. I think they're probably going to sit back and laugh. They'll probably be sitting back laughing. Like, you remember that time when we were like, man, why did we do that? They're going a few Pro Bowls later, and I'll stand on that as well. I think that if he stays healthy, I know his work ethic, and I know the pieces that y'all have around him. He is a Pro Bowl caliber player, and I'll stand on that. That's what I believe.
Coach Malcolm Kelly from TCU. Thank you so much, Coach, for giving us some insight into Jalen Reagor. We wish you the best next season at TCU, and I know you'll be watching what's going on here in Philly. So thank you so much for joining us today.
No doubt. Every Sunday. Thanks for having me.
If you like our videos, please subscribe, hit the notifications button, and you can download our podcast wherever you get your podcast, Bracy Sports Media. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.